Next up, Mark Schindler's prospect of the week. Let's dive in. It's Keyonte George time. Mark, the thing that stands out to me about Keyonte George, and I'll pull up his numbers as we're talking, but Keyonte George currently is averaging 15.7 points, 4.4 rebounds, 4.2 assists, shooting 39.8% from the field, 32.9% from three, 86% from the line. Yeah, he's been interesting, but the thing that stands out is the cadence with which he plays and like gets his shots. Like he almost gets shots in between cadence and in between steps. Like you don't expect the shot to go up when it goes up with Keyonte. That's what makes him such a good creator, in my opinion. Is that what kind of stands out for you?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Obviously, he's not this guy. He's not Brandon Roy, but it kind of reminds me of that, and that same like rising up in a way that you don't really expect. It's so sudden. And I think one of the things I'm toying with, because we talked about this a little before we got on, I am really high on Keyonte, and part of that is because I've watched a ton of him in the last 2 years from what he was doing at IMG, playing with Team USA as well. I think I'm a lot higher on what he's done in Baylor than you are right now, and I think let's talk a little bit about Baylor, about Baylor context in general. How have you felt about Baylor as a team just to start the year?
I think they're still searching for an identity, almost, is like what I would say. Like, this is a team that I expected to have just like an elite backcourt. I really like Adam Flagler. LJ Cryer can certainly knock down shots at a really, really high level. Keyonte is a really high level creator, but like, it seems like they still haven't quite figured out the defensive side of the floor yet.
That's an understatement.
It feels like they still haven't quite figured out the right, like, mix of who is like initiating the offense when, and who is like figuring who's going to like be the primary creative force on the team. Almost,
they have really struggled without having connective players, I think, is my biggest issue for them right now.
Great call.
I think that they were hoping Jalen Bridges was going to be that guy, and it hasn't worked out yet. Like, I think he's been fine. Like, he does some quality things defensively. He can knock down some shots. Hasn't shot all that well from three this year. I think that's going to change just based on track record. But I think that they were really hoping that there would be a little bit more from him as a passer or just continuing plays. I don't think it's really been there. I think actually Flo Thama has been probably a little bit better for me offensively than I was expecting this year. Not that he's bad, but like, I think he's okay with ball reversals and stuff. But again, like you mentioned, like, Cryer is very much so like, okay, ending plays. I don't think continuing plays is necessarily his advantage. And it's really been Keyonte and Flagler have been their two best ball movers. Like, again, Langston Love is still coming back from injury. I think there's potential with him there, but the wing play overall has just been really up and down in terms of what it's really bringing. I do have to say, though, just to speak on their bigs, Josh Ojianwuna has been – I am excited about him, like, just long-term. But he's been really fun for them, especially with Jonathan Chamochacho out. Caleb Lohner's been fun. But again, like, it's a very odd mix of guards and bigs without really having wing players. So Keyonte's been in a really weird spot for me in being – like, I think it's been a little bit better recently in terms of just being more aggressive in attacking. But it's felt like, just based on how they want to do things, like they're using him a lot more like a wing than a guard at times. Like, I think that they'll let him. I mean, obviously he runs things. It's not like he's not creating offense at all. So I'm not trying to overdo that. But I do think it has felt a little bit weird in that. And that's not to like say that that's an excuse for what his efficiency has been. But so that's been odd. Just the Baylor context in general.
They've been using Flagler as the lead, right? Yeah. Like, that's it. Like, Flagler's been the lead guard. He's been pretty good.
Jump this year has been pretty fun. Like,
particularly as a creator, like, he's always been one of the best shooters in college basketball, but the ability to initiate plays, to play make, to do everything like that has been really good.
Yeah. The passing has been awesome from him, from what I expected it to be this year. So what's your maybe hangups are all I'm going to put, but what is like the biggest thing for you with Keyonte? And I'm assuming efficiency, right?
It's definitely efficiency. It's efficiency for like quality of competition in some way, right? Like you look at his numbers against tier A and B Ken Palm teams, and all of these are tier A teams, which is to say like top 50 adjusted for home court advantage, right? His true shooting percentage against those teams is 47.6%. His turnover rate is 25.4% against those teams right now. And it just feels like he operates almost outside of the flow of their offense more than everyone else. And this isn't like, I don't mean that as a criticism of him. I think it's more a criticism of the team, maybe. Still navigating what we said at the top here in terms of like trying to figure out its identity, trying to figure out how to run offense, trying to figure out a lot of different things, not having connective players, right? But it feels like he operates a bit more outside of the flow of like a typical Baylor team.
Yeah, I think that's where it's tough for me because I agree. I think I don't think that it's going to happen, especially with how Flagler's played. I think that they need to lean into more of him running things, because especially in terms like not that Flagler can't create downhill penetration, but I think you're going to get more from Keyonte with it. All of his stuff has been mostly attacking out of the slot or second side.
Right.
Like I just think like in terms of what like, and he's a really like part of why I like him. He's a really good passer. I think he's like even if he's not the lead assist guy, I think he's been probably in terms of what he can create passing wise for them. I think he's going to bring the most to the table.
Well, let's stop. Let's pause on the passing and talk about the passing.
That's fair. Okay,
because
fair.
I think it's really, really interesting. I think he has great vision. I think that like he sees the court exceptionally well. I don't know that I would call him like a great playmaker.
Well, yeah, great was probably a little too much. Like I'd call him a good playmaker passer, but like
I don't even know if I would go that far right now. Like I think he has that upside, and I think he has that level of vision. But like shot selection's a part of this, right? Like he takes some very questionable, difficult shots when he has teammates open. So like I don't. He's hard. He's really, really hard, I think.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I don't know. Maybe I'm painted by some of the games I watched. Like I thought UCLA game was definitely, I mean, that's his worst game of the season. I thought they did a really good job pressuring him overall, but he also forced it. But I mean, I know 6 of 15 isn't amazing, but he got to the line a bunch. It was a lot of threes. I liked what he did in geez, can I speak? I really liked what he did against Virginia, especially when they try to pressure him. With how aggressively they can play. Like he's splitting double teams in that game with his handle. I felt he was pretty good in terms of, finding, like he had a couple lobs in that game. He's good hitting corners. Like again, like there's stuff that needs to develop out more still for sure. But I think like you're mentioning too, I mean, like he's shooting really poorly on pull-up twos right now. Part of that, he doesn't take a million of them, but tie in that with his floater. And his floater's been fine, but not like it's okay. You're 6'4", 6'5", like 210 pounds. Like he's capable of getting downhill more. I think that's my biggest criticism right now. I think he's capable of getting to and finishing at the rim more than he has been. I'd like to see his free throw rate be higher than it has been in terms of just drawing contact and being physical, because again, he's capable of it. But again, what's weird, like, cause like you mentioned in terms of, how he's getting his shots.
Well, let's pause on the Virginia game real quick.
That's fair. Yeah.
I don't agree with you. I didn't think he played well in that game.
Wow. Okay.
If you look at the way the game was played, that was a blowout after 30 minutes, right? He had 9 of his 11 points after they got down 60-40 with like 10 minutes left in that game. And I felt like Virginia did a really, really good job of shutting him down for the first 30 minutes. And then Virginia's defense kind of lapsed a little bit late after the game was basically over a little bit. Like I thought they let him get a little bit loose in a way that doesn't happen all that often for Virginia. And that's why he ended up with 20 points on 16 shots or whatever he did. But like early in that game, he was at like 11 points on like 14 shots, and then they got down 20, and then the defense eased up and he kind of caught back on again.
That's fair. I definitely view it a little bit differently. I think that is a fair point. Maybe I should consider that more. But I still really liked what he did in that game, just process wise. And again, like I think it's more so like the shots got to fall for sure. Um, I don't know. Like I did like that game. He had a couple turnovers I didn't love.
Mhm.
But I still maybe I'm being too idealistic with it, but I did like it overall. What is so like going to the Marquette game?
Yeah.
What is tough though is like because I mean, like we're talking about, like he's not typically the guy who's bringing the ball up or initiating the offense. Marquette just absolutely hammered them from actually getting the ball into the half court. And I felt like once he did get the ball, he was doing really good things. Um, but again, I think that's part of why I'd like to see them actually just have him operate with the ball more. But I'm not trying to just overly simplify it, but I do think like that's part of what's been difficult is just where he's getting the ball, how it's happening. It's not like again, it's not perfect. Like I think I just have felt good overall about what he can do with the ball in his hands. Like the pull up three has been good for him. He's shooting 35% on them right now, on pretty high volume. Excuse me. The catch and shoot stuff's been good. He's capable of doing it off movement. I just want to see them lean into him a little bit more because I feel like he's still like you mentioned. I think he's still leaning it, like trying to figure out his role on Baylor a little bit, as the whole team is, to be fair too. Um, because especially, I mean, like when you look at his shot, like he's shooting 33%. It's better than that, in my opinion, just based on track record, on difficulty. Maybe that weighs into it more because I'm pretty confident him being a plus shooter on
I think he'll
volume.
shoot.
Yeah.
I think he has real touch. So against Marquette again, I want to bring up game situation. 5 points in the first half. They get down 20 again, and he had 7 of his 12 points in that game after they were down 20 as well. I get this impression that it's very, and this is where we need to talk about my biggest concern with him. He is exceptionally creative, and he has that in between cadence, right? He has that like, okay, I'm in between steps. I can still get on balance for a pull up, right? That is just very difficult, very sudden. He has no first step. Like he's not really all that good as an athlete in terms of explosiveness, in terms of like rising up and finishing at a really high level. He's very long. It feels like he's very long, at least. Do you get that impression?
Yeah, he's long and he's really strong too.
Very strong, can go through contact, can absorb contact on the perimeter when trying to like make moves, which I think is another really, really important thing for someone that does have limited explosiveness. But his explosiveness is pretty limited, I think. And he's going to have to live off of a very difficult diet of shots, I think, to make it work at the next level. He's capable of creating those shots, and I think his touch is good enough to make them. But the diet of shots is going to be very difficult.
This is making me want to rewatch stuff. I don't think that he's got amazing first step. I think a lot of it's because he's really good at attacking advantages as soon as they open, and his handle is really good.
He's good at creating that advantage and getting a guy off balance, I think. Like his handle is very technically good.
Yeah, I don't know if I feel just like slightly different about his first step. Like I don't think that it's amazing, but I don't think that it's I don't really have any athleticism concerns with him. Maybe I'm too married to high school tape, but like he was a good vertical athlete in high school. What he brought, like man, this is.
Well,
okay,
I think that like he can go up and dunk and like make plays, but like I don't think that extends to first step. And honestly, like I don't think his like leaping is. I don't think he's like an above average leaper by NBA.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say that he's above average.
Yeah, like
but just in terms of his size and like you mentioned the length, like I think I don't know. I guess I'm just more confident in the efficiency improving because the efficiency the issue hasn't necessarily even been anything around the rim. It's just been some of the touch shots and the pull-ups that have been really dragging him.
Good question. I haven't looked up his rim efficiency recently.
Because I think he's only dunked twice this year. Now I think about it. Last time I looked.
Yeah, like I don't feel like he's like really rising up all the time and like throwing down. They play, relatively quickly as well. So like you would think that he's going to get some transition opportunities, things like that. This year, he's shooting 65% at the rim. His finishing package is quite good. It's just, when is he getting there? That's my thing. Like, he's only gotten there 33 times so far in 9 games that they've played. So he's not really putting a ton of pressure on the rim either. He's living on a very difficult diet of shots.
True. Okay. This is really making me want to rewatch stuff. I mean, I don't know. I just haven't felt like he can't get there. It just feels like more like a decision in terms of the way that he's attacking. But I don't. Wow, we are far apart on this one. It's interesting.
We're not that okay. We're a little bit far apart because I think you have him pretty high and I have him. I think where we are right now in terms of like the number of where we have him ranked is probably not terribly far apart.
Yeah.
But I think that it has more to do with my questions about him. And like, look, I've spent quite a bit of time now, like, questioning him. I think he is such an interesting creative playmaker. Like, I think his handle is so technically sound. Again, like, I can't emphasize enough that ability to get a variety of different looks, like off of different cadences, different footworks, different, leaning. Like, anytime he gets a defender just like leaning the wrong way, he can go up and shoot immediately. Like, those are things that matter in the NBA. He's going to win on the margins at a significant level. I also will note that typically with some college teams, like the classic Kentucky thing, right, is like, you look back at Kentucky tape, Tyrese Maxey looked fast, but like not overly fast at Kentucky because he was so wrapped into this like half-court offensive game that had no spacing whatsoever, and it like really kind of diminished the amount that he was able to showcase his speed, right? Situation matters in that regard in college basketball.
For sure.
Baylor's pretty well spaced. Like, I don't think that's something you can point to. Like, that's a well-run offense. They have guys like LJ Cryer and Adam Flagler that you have to guard 28 feet from the basket, just straight up. Teams have continued to guard Jalen Bridges. I wonder if that will change at some point, maybe. But like, then they also have the vertical lob threat that is Thamba, who is not Jonathan Tchamwa-Tchatchoua, but like, you at least have to stay honest on him and tag him as a defender, right? Like, if you don't, Flagler can hit that lob play. So like, I don't know. Like, I think that he's not getting as much of an advantage going up to the NBA in terms of spacing as, like, for instance, Cason Wallace will, coming out of that Kentucky scheme where he has no space to operate ever point blank because Jacob Toppin's hunting for mid-range jumpers. Oscar Tshiebwe is just like camping out in the paint the entire time looking for offensive rebounds and post-ups. Like, I don't know. I'm not like wildly worried about Keyonte at all. I just think there are some real contextual things and tape things that have worried me a little bit in terms of efficiency.
No, that's totally fair. Do you want to play the game where you make it really hard on me?
All right, let's play the NBA draft board game with Mark Schindler. NBA draft board game is a game that during this segment that is Mark Schindler's prospect of the week, I ask him, would you rather have this guy or that guy? And Mark has to make an on-the-fly decision.
The worst part
Mark
of my week.
Yeah, it's the worst part of Mark's week because Mark does not like having to pick one prospect over another.
That's totally true.
Okay. Keyonte George or Bryce Sensabaugh?
Oh, Keyonte for sure.
Okay, I agree with you. I'm kind of getting a gauge for people. You go low, you go high on guys. Keyonte George or Grady Dick?
Keyonte.
Okay. I think I'm there. Grady Dick's game against Indiana this weekend gave me some pause because it was the best that he had defended at this point in the season so far. And I mean, goodness, like I think he made like 5 threes in that game.
His
he had
shooting's
20
been
points.
fantastic.
He was unbelievable. Grady Dick was unbelievable in that game. But I do have Keyonte and Grady Dick in the same like tier right now. Keyonte George or Jarris Walker, who we talked about last week.
Depends on the team, especially because Jarris just had the best game of his season.
He was terrific. He was
so
really good in that game.
I think it would depend on the team, but I'd probably lean Keyonte most of the time.
Yeah. Would depend on the team. I have them right next to each other.
Yeah, I'd have them.
Think
I'd have them both higher, but right next to each other. Yeah.
think I would lean Jarris, to
Okay.
be honest, right now.
Yeah.
Just because of here in the middle of this game, let's take a break. We haven't talked at all about Keyonte defensively yet.
Yeah.
What have you thought of his defense?
He's been good. I think that
he's been pretty good.
Yeah, that's part of why I like him. Like,
yeah,
especially too, like, because he went from his junior year, he didn't really play defense like that to this last year at IMG. Dude, his defense was so good. He's a dog at the point of attack.
yes.
Really good at getting up into people, and he's good off the ball too. I've been pretty impressed with how well he's fit into no middle. Their no middle has been a mess overall, but the way that he's fit in so far, I have been pretty impressed with.
I don't think he is I think he is their one perimeter defender that makes sense in a no middle scheme.
Yeah.
I think Adam Flagler and LJ Cryer are too small to contain at the point of attack, and they struggle with it. I think Keyonte has been pretty good, and he's super physical. He's super strong.
Yeah.
That's another place where the strength, I think, really plays up, is he's able to take a bump from someone because he's guarding up a lot of the time.
Yeah.
He's guarding
the three a ton, so it's been
bigger guys than him.
I have do you want to hear my biggest boomer take while we're in the middle of this real quick? Watching the Virginia Baylor game, I'm surprised I didn't get more blasted on Twitter for this, but I tweeted out, I was like, I'm getting to the point where I get UVA now. I understand it. I understand the idea. I can kind of appreciate watching them play basketball. Obviously, they play differently now than they did 5 years ago, but they picked apart Baylor. Oh my God. They did everything. They just kept drifting guys into the middle to back screen somebody so that it would fuck up the rotations. It was awesome stuff. It was similarly to when you did that thread on what Ohio State did to Texas Tech. It was pretty beautiful. I love Ben Vanderplas. Just had to get that out there. But yeah, all right, let's continue.
That wasn't a boomer take. I was expecting worse. I was expecting
it is kind of a boomer take. When if I had told myself when I was 15 that I would like Virginia basketball or enjoy watching Virginia basketball at some point, I would scoff at myself. But here we are.
Virginia basketball is shout out John Rothstein. Virginia basketball is a thing of beauty. I do genuinely very much enjoy it. Okay, back to the game. This is one where we're just going to flat disagree. Cason Wallace or Keyonte George?
Keyonte. For me,
I think
Keyonte. I like Cason a lot.
This is a philosophy discussion that we're about to have more than a evaluation discussion, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So why Keyonte over Cason for you?
Just actually being able to create. I know that I agree with you that Cason has looked more restricted because of what Kentucky's spacing is. I still just I've seen Keyonte actually be able to dribble through nail help, and I think that's a big question for Cason. So just on that principle and what I think Cason's actually, they're probably on par as passers. I just don't know that he's ever going to get to the same level of creation and scoring that Keyonte brings, and I like him way better as a shooter than Cason.
Wow.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
That's where the evaluation is different then. I think they're pretty close.
Okay. Way better was probably a little bit of a stretch, but I think I would have him a solid grade or tier above him as a shooter.
Interesting.
And for what his archetype is, because he's bigger than Cason too by a decent amount.
I would say he's probably an inch bigger and probably a few inches in terms of wingspan longer. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that matters to me because again, especially talking about, league's playing a lot more 3-guard lineups, or is at least I should say more willing to play more 3-guard lineups. It matters. And obviously that's not Cason could guard a tank, but offensively, I don't know.
So here's the thing that I like a little bit more about Cason than Keyonte. It comes down to role scalability for me.
Mm-hmm.
Cason, I think, translates better to being a third or fourth best guy on a team than Keyonte does. Keyonte, I think, translates to being a top 3 option on a team better than Cason does. Do you think either of these guys are that? like on an NBA team or a top 3 player?
Oh, I think Keyonte is one of the guys in the draft with all-star upside. That's where I'm at with him right now. And I'm
Yeah,
assuming we are very different on that.
So like I have a wide range of like very possible outcomes for Keyonte. I don't think all-star is like out of the question for him just in terms of his creativity. I think it's a low end outcome, like a low percentage chance outcome. But if you, so that changes things in terms of this conversation. But if you're like me and you think that it's much more likely that Casey Wallace and Keyonte George both end up being more like role player starter types, I would rather have Kaysen's archetype than Keyonte's.
That I would agree with, but I think okay. So I guess the difference for us is that I have more faith in Keyonte being like that all-star level player.
Yeah, that's it. You have a higher percentage chance of Kaysen being an all-star than I do. I have Kaysen as like a genuinely special like off-ball defender, IQ defender. Like I think he is like all defense upside. Basically,
I would agree with
I think Keyonte is a good defender. You know, like I think that there are levels to this shit.
For sure.
Right? Like on top of that, I think Kaysen is a better shooter off the catch than Keyonte is. I think that Keyonte is a much better pull-up shooter. Like I have real questions about Kaysen's pull-up shooting, but I think that Keyonte, or I think that Kaysen off the catch is really good, takes him off the hop, very in rhythm, super like polished footwork, super polished balance. Can't really take him off the bounce. I don't like the rhythm off the bounce. I don't like, I think it looks more mechanical off the bounce. Unless he's just like, taking a sidestep, one dribble, relocation, pull up 3, basically.
Yeah.
Keyonte can like legit just pull up in rhythm off the bounce. And that's super important. But I think that his rhythm off the catch is a little bit different. So where do you fall on how easy do you think it is to translate off the dribble shooting into being a good off the catch shooter?
I think his touch is just markedly better than Kaysen's, which to me, like, especially like, I mean, he has stuff in high school coming off movement. And I mean, he's done movement stuff in Baylor. Like, I think it's just I have a lot more confidence in the NBA developing catch and shoot guys than in like, you can't really develop a movement shooter. Like that's really hard to do. You have to have legit touch to do that. So I think, I mean, that's something I'd need to know what Keyonte's work ethic is like if I'm actually drafting him, and like what that entails. But I'd be like, I think that he could be a guy who's taking like 7 or 8 threes per game and hitting above league average. Like I'm there with him, just with what his touch is and what the overall pull up stuff has been. And like you mentioned too, because like, I don't know, that's going to be my biggest struggle with Kaysen, because if he's not again, like he is a special defender, but by virtue of like, is he ever going to be able to super credibly run ball screens in a playoff setting? Like when you're talking about what that, and that's obviously a way.
Well, and here's the real issue with that. We're not going to find out the answer to that this year because Kentucky's just not going to have him do it. No, I will readily admit, like we all have biases as evaluators, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Kaysen fits firmly into all of my biases that I tend to get wrong as an evaluator, just straight up, right? Like he is an elite defender. He is a great decision maker. His feel for the game is absolutely phenomenal. I tend to overvalue those specific traits. And all of Kaysen's greatness, like the traits that make him so good, are the things that I tend to overvalue as a prospect evaluator. So like, I am fully ready to admit that like this is one where I'm going to have to, as I do my evaluations throughout the year, really try to set a lot of that aside.
Yeah.
As I try and like evaluate Kaysen. But yeah, it's hard. I think he's a hard one. So to continue the game here, Keyonte George or Nick Smith?
Oh, Nick Smith. Nick Smith.
Okay. Better. Keyonte George or Anthony Black?
Keyonte.
Okay. I
I think it's
very, very, very strongly disagree
I
with
think
that.
it okay, that one's hard. It's team dependent because I still don't believe in Anthony Black's shot. I'm like
Okay.
I want to, but I just need to see it. I need to see more. Like I think in the right setting, awesome. But again, it depends on team. But I think I'd have them close. Like if it's just 1-to-1, Ant is better. I would have Ant over Keyonte. But I
Okay.
think again, it's definitely team dependent.
Interesting. Okay. Where do you have Keyonte right now on your board?
Let me actually grab my phone really quick because I just did this morning.
So as Mark goes to grab his phone and takes off his headphones, I have Keyonte somewhere in the like 13 to 15 range right
Okay,
now,
I have him
along
a little bit
with
higher than that.
along with Jarris Walker, Dariq Whitehead, Grady Dick, guys like that. And that's like I see him more as a top 20 pick as opposed to like a no question, like unequivocally guaranteed lottery guy. I think he could end up there. Like if he fixes the efficiency concerns in the Big 12, then all bets are off. Like could end up in the top 10 very easily. But some of the efficiency stuff that has come up this year has really given me pause and makes me kind of like, adjust here, up and down as we're going.
Totally fair. Yeah, I have Keyonte 9th behind Ant and Dariq. Just because Dariq, we talked about this. I'm waiting until we got to see more. He's looked a little bit better recently, so injuries are finicky. But yeah,